Footy, 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 footy! Finish! Footy, 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 footy! Finish! Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Footy Fetish Show where the fetish is real and the footy is soccer. Well, today it's football. We've got a guest from Scotland who will be joining us to talk about the new website called SoRare. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. Grant Anderson, also known as Hibee. Hibee, how you doing?
Thank you. That was some intro. It really was. I'm loving that. So, yeah, thanks for having me on.
Great. I wasn't sure if I was going to hit the falsetto. I didn't want to crack some earphones, so I thought I'd just try and sing it to my best. I'll leave the falsettos for Booty.
My ears haven't popped. It's all good.
So Hibee, really quick, when we have new guests on the podcast, we always like to ask some really basic soccer questions to kind of give our listeners an idea of who you are, what kind of soccer fan you are. So first, I got to ask, your name is Grant Anderson, but your podcast name is Hibee. So real quick, where did Hibee come from?
So we'll probably go into that when we touch on my favourite team. That's a nickname for Hibernian. So Hibs, Hibernian, that is the team that I follow. So we'll touch on them in a bit more detail later, but that's where Hibee comes from.
Fantastic. Okay. This is probably my favorite question that I like to ask our new guests, and that is, what is your first memory of the sport? Whether it was playing it as a child, whether it was watching like a World Cup memory and that just like stuck out in your brain. What is your first memory of soccer?
So I'm conscious this is going out to an American user base. So I've actually got two. My first memory of football won't mean much to many fans listening here. So this was John Robertson's testimonial in 1992. So I was 5 years old. He's a Hearts player. He was a striker for Hearts. They're the rivals of the team that I ended up supporting. My dad, my family were all Hearts fans. I got taken to a game when I was 5 years old. I was extremely bored. I can't remember much about it other than being taken to that game. But Kevin Keegan was the manager on the other side, so it was against Newcastle. He was a player manager at the time, subbed himself off after 20 minutes. But yeah, so that was my first memory of football. But really, the first vivid memory I had was the World Cup in France '98. So Brazil, Scotland in the group stages. That was a fantastic match. I was 10, 11 at the time. I remember being in my friend's house. We were watching it in his bedroom. We had strips on. We had party food. It was a big game. Scotland were playing Brazil. There's the Brazil lineup. Yeah, you had guys like Rivaldo, Ronaldo, Dunga, Roberto Carlos against Jim Leighton and Gordon Durie of Scotland. It was, we were massive underdogs, but just to be playing against these players that, I idolised at that age. You were playing with them in FIFA Road to World Cup '98. These were players that you used all the time in that game. And then the Hibs goalkeeper, Jim Leighton, was there. You've got, all these sort of mediocre Scotland players, but when I say mediocre, they maybe were at the time, but compared to some of the guys we've got now, I wouldn't mind having these boys back, because we've not really done too well. So yeah, that was the first vivid memory. France '98, John Collins getting a penalty there to bring us back level 1-1. We did go on to lose 2-1 in that game, but yeah, that was an exciting one.
Sounds like a valiant effort, though. A 2-1 to Brazil in the World Cup that's nothing to just like scoff at. That's a pretty solid result.
That's it, and it was an own goal for their second as well. So yeah, a bit frustrating, but at 11 years old, I was just excited to be seeing Cafu and Ronaldo and all these guys. Amazing, wasn't it?
Dang, that is a hell of a memory. I got to bring it back to something you just said. So you said something about a team called Hearts. Could you tell us where they are in Scotland, I think?
Yeah, so they're in this city in Edinburgh. So Hibs and Hearts are the two clubs in the city. So it's Hearts of Midlothian and Hibernian. So they play in maroon, we play in green. So yeah, a big rivalry there. Currently, they are not in the top division. They've been relegated. It's quite nice to see. Uh, after lots of years of ribbing from them. So yeah.
Nice. Okay, so I'm actually another thing I'm hearing is I'm looking at your name. It's spelled Hibee, and this goes into the next question. Like you said, who is your favorite team?
Yeah, so touched on it there. Hibs, Hibernian, so from Edinburgh, we're a club that most of the listeners will have no idea about. Most people in England don't really know who Hibs are. We are one of the bigger Scottish clubs. We're sort of in the sort of third to fifth largest clubs in Scotland. We're the first British club to ever play in the European Cup, but those glory days were quite some time ago. So back in sort of from 1940 to 1960, we had quite some team. We were one of the best teams in Europe. And we after the Second World War, we had a team known as the Famous Five. So it was Gordon Smith, Bobby Johnston, Laurie Riley, Eddie Turnbull, and Willie Ormond. They were known as the Famous Five, and all of them scored over 100 goals each for Hibs. They were
Holy shit!
just fantastic. Who won us a league title, something we've not done since 1952. So yeah, as I said, our glory days are certainly well in the past, but we have had some serious history. So definitely a team to go and look into if you're a bit of a football hipster, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm looking at some nicknames. They got Hibs, the Hibees, and the Cabbage. Is that a nickname?
Yeah, the cabbage and ribs, the Hibs.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, we're definitely going to look it out. I know Booty is a huge hipster fan. And for those listening out there, Booty could not attend, which is why I sang the intro. But I know Booty would get a kick out of this group. He is a massive fan of Celtic. And I think he would love to dive into a Scottish club as well, and especially because of these colors. So, really cool. I'll have to pass that on to Booty.
That's it. So
So,
we are the original sort of Irish club in Scotland. So Celtic borrowed a few things from Hibs. Won't go into that too much, but yeah,
no
Booty
shit.
might Booty might enjoy that. We came
Wow.
well before Celtic, so
Wow. Oh, he is going to love that because he is a huge Celtic fan. So to hear that you are a fan of a club that actually was kind of a inspiration for a lot of the Celtic culture, I think he would absolutely buy into being a fan. We're going to have to get him a jersey now.
that's it. So well, the actual term Hibernian, so that was a Roman Catholic name for Ireland.
Whoa,
That's where that
really?
comes from. Yeah.
Interesting. So were the owners Irish and then they started this club in Scotland? How did that happen? And forgive me for knowing the history of the UK here.
Yeah, so back then, not so much owners at that time. So more, would have been more of a local movement that started the
Ah,
club. So locals playing those locals in the industry in Leith at the time. So the dock workers, which were largely made up of Irish workers at the time, built a club around the area that they lived. So this is
ah,
going back to the 1880s. This is quite some time ago. So
yeah,
1875 is when we were
yeah.
founded.
Incredible. We did a podcast on the origins of the sport, and right around 1863 is when the official rules came out for the sport. So to hear that this club was around 1875 means they were right around the origin of, the FIFA rules that we all, play by today, play and watch by today. So that's super interesting,
Yeah, yeah,
and
absolutely.
yeah, incredible that we're talking to you on the Footy Fetish Show. You are probably one of the most hardcore fans we've had on the show, so it's a pleasure to have you on here.
Well, I don't know about back in the UK being one of the most hardcore fans, but yeah, definitely an interesting one, isn't it? A bit different from what you normally got in the Champions League side.
Next question for our viewers and our listeners. Two-part question. Who is your favorite player, past, present, or future, in Scotland, Ireland, or England? And then who is your favorite player more towards the inland side of Europe?
Right. Okay. So I was going to say Maradona and Ivan Sproul. So Ivan Sproul,
Oh,
definitely from a Hibs perspective. So he was a player not even with us for a long period, but just super exciting. He only cost us £5,000. He managed to score a hat trick against Rangers in one game. He was
Jesus.
just there was something about him for a couple of years as a teenager when I was a season ticket holder. Watching him, he would get you up out of your seat. The crowd went crazy. He got the ball. You knew he could do something, and he wasn't the technically the most greatest. He didn't normally, even hit the target, but he had this speed, and it was just you knew the other team couldn't do much about him, and he was just it was super exciting. But I mentioned Maradona, obviously, and that's not really the European side apart from his stint in Napoli. But he for me is a legend, isn't he? And obviously passed away this year,
Mhm.
not so long ago. Just just a fantastic character, somebody who brought so much to the sport. And there's always going to be a Maradona Pele debate. There's always going to be who's the greatest player of all time. But he was just somebody who brought so much joy to so many people who watched football. I think most of us have probably picked up a Maradona documentary since he passed, and yeah, it's it's just crazy the life he lived, what he meant to so many people, and just how good he was, and what he brought to that Argentina team and also Napoli. Amazing.
Yeah, well said there. Very well said. I don't think I can even add anything on there. I mean, everything you said, I absolutely agree with. The one thing for me that I think tops everything is the joy and entertainment he brought to so many people. I mean, it's on the same level as Pele and why he's regarded as one of the best ever, just because he was such a good soccer player. I really like that favorite player. That also kind of tells me a lot about you, as a person, that you favor Maradona. I like that. That means uh, if I had to guess, you like to have a cocktail and kind of let loose every once in a while, have a beer here and there.
I do indeed. I do indeed. As we're speaking, I've got a rum in my hand, so it wouldn't be a podcast without a rum and coke.
Absolutely. I usually have this drink, and I failed to pour one for this episode, but I have a drink actually won a competition in the early 1900s. It's called a Rum
Well,
Ramsey,
a rum
and
Ramsey.
this drink, the what was really cool about this drink is it was in a competition with two other drinks, and the winner of this drink did not have to disclose the ingredients of the cocktail. So of the other three drinks, two of their recipes have been released to the city of New Orleans, and everybody has these drinks and everybody serves them. This one drink was kept in this restaurant, and this restaurant actually was just sold to a new owner, but the original owners kept the recipe and have continued to make the drink outside of the restaurant, separate to that restaurant industry. And I always make sure to keep on stock for when we have guests in the studio that I can get them a drink and kind of loosen up and enjoy ourselves. So definitely appreciate having a cocktail while having a podcast.
I'm going to have to check that one out. I'm just having a look here. It may be a new purchase.
There you go, man. There you go. So our next question here, and this is last question, more related to what the footy fetish is about. What was your favorite Champions League memory, whether it was a team, a certain year, or a certain play?
Yeah, I think I had to think about this one because you obviously think about all the more recent games, don't you? There's been a lot of big games recently with PSG and Barca and others that stick in the mind. But I think
Hmm.
going back a bit further, probably 2004, 2005, Mourinho, Chelsea 4-2 Barca. That was a massive game, and it was sort of the start of the Mourinho history, wasn't it? They had just been beaten 2-1 in the first leg at the new Camp Nou, and then they're back at Stamford Bridge. And this was a new Chelsea team that had guys like Drogba, Eidur Gudjohnsen, Lampard, Damien Duff. They had, and Barca had Ronaldinho and all these amazing players at the time. Chelsea had Cech in goals. It was I'm not a Chelsea fan. I'm not a fan of any particular Premier League team. I just follow Premier League football and Champions League football. But it was really interesting to see this new team that had been put together with, Abramovich's millions, billions, playing against Barcelona. It was a bit of this was an era, a changing moment in football, wasn't it? When Abramovich came into Chelsea, the spend level went up a notch. You always had the Galacticos, you had Barcelona, you had the Italian teams before that who had done extremely well, but they were sort of dying out, and this was new blood into the footballing market. And yeah, it was a massive game.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the highlights as you're talking. This is like peak Barcelona here, back when Ronaldinho was there, and it's just shocking that, like you said, that Mourinho comes in, and this is the game that kind of begins his era. I mean, granted, he had that Porto win, but I mean, this like really set off his what's a good word? His career, I guess, as just the coach, the Mourinho coach. Willing to upset the bookmakers and and totally turn soccer on his head. Granted, he had the money, like you're saying, but wow, I actually did not get to watch this one. This was well before I started to follow the Champions League, but definitely going to have to go back and rewatch this one. This one looks like a cracker of a match here.
Yeah, definitely. I think I need to try and find some more highlights and go and actually watch that again, because it was some game. When I was thinking back, this is the only big game that sort of sticks in my memory. There's been loads of huge games, but
Oh yeah,
one for me.
fantastic. Well, this has been great getting to know you, Hibee. The reason, though, that we brought you on this podcast, and we're very excited to talk to you, is because of this new website that has come out called SoRare. And you actually have a podcast called the SoRare Podcast, and we're very excited to have our listeners go and check you out. I've actually been listening quite a few and learning a lot. The most recent episode I heard was you had two guests on. One was a Japanese SoRare fan, and another one was an American SoRare fan. And it was absolutely incredible to hear those two stories. So for all those listening out there, please go ahead and check out the SoRare Podcast. It's on all platforms, right, Hibee?
It is, yep.
Fantastic. And so let's get right into it. When did you find out about SoRare?
So I started about 10, 11 months ago, but I had seen it maybe 6 months before that. But it wasn't really in a finished article. It was very early doors, and I didn't feel that it was the right thing for me at the time. I had other things that I was looking at. Didn't really pay too much attention. Then in a group chat on Twitter, a couple of guys mentioned it again, and we all went and took a look. There was maybe a dozen of us that all went and signed up that night, entered the free teams that you get to initially test it out. And yeah, after the first week or two, I thought, there's something about this. This has real potential. And it was still very early days. There's not that many clubs on at this point. You only really had the full Belgian league, so the Jupiler League. You had a few teams across Europe, and that was really it. You didn't have any of the huge teams like Liverpool, Bayern, Inter that we have today. So it was a very different prospect, but the potential was there. I was interested in blockchain, so it felt like something I was, naturally inclined to take a look at. So dipped my toe in, started having a look at the players on the market, made a few purchases and played about at the lower end. Yeah, it's just gripped me ever since. So week in, week out, this is what occupies me outside of work. As you mentioned, started doing the podcast, and I felt, so that's been going for, we've done 29 episodes, so just over 6 months. And really, the reason for that was because of the community, you've got this global game. You've got over 140 different nationalities playing the game, and they needed a focal point, I felt. So I've seen this in other environments where you've had a podcast, and it really allows the user base to rally around something, to hear others speaking about it. It gives a voice to the community, and it allows you to see ideas and share ideas from other people. As you mentioned there, the last episode I had SoRare Japan and SoRare USA on, two completely different types of managers with vastly different experiences, but amazing for the users, to other users, to actually listen to them, their experiences. It was some crazy stuff that they came out with there. These are really experienced guys, and so it's great to be able to get them on. I'm learning from them every week as I get them on the podcast. So it's changing my perspective over the collection, how I approach the game when I hear from others, and it's also then allowing others to do that. So I think we've got listeners from 61 different countries at the moment listening to the pod, and as I said, there's over 120 nationalities playing the game. It's crazy, and it's really just getting started. I think you had in the last few weeks a $50 million $50 million Series A funding that came from some really big VC firms. Also included some big backing from huge names within the sport. So we've got Anton Griezmann, Oliver Bierhoff, Gerard Piqué, Andre Schürrle, Rio Ferdinand, all involved in the game. They've all invested their own money. They're all invested in this platform and helping it grow. And yeah, it's just so exciting.
Man, I love what you said about how you started to play it and then realized the potential that was here. And this is before, like you said, all the big clubs. I recently joined maybe 3 weeks ago, and I'm at the same point where I'm absolutely hooked, and I'm joining, seeing teams like Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Liverpool, Inter, like you said, Juventus is now there. Milan just joined this last week. It has been absolutely amazing to see how fast this is growing, and I'm sure you, someone who has been a fan for probably a year. If I think you said about
You've cut out again.
12 months you joined. You started the podcast about 6 months ago. I'm sure watching this evolve over this last year has just been totally electrifying to see, because you're seeing new teams, you're seeing new users. Man, and then to add on to that, you've started this podcast where you're now getting perspectives from people all over the world, because as we know, soccer is a global sport. And then, again, like you said, having these guests on is opening your eyes to different perspectives of how they see SoRare. Specifically, I kind of wanted to talk about the SoRare Japanese guy who is just. I liked one of the things he said, where he said he's so into the Japanese league. If you asked him to name 5 players on Liverpool, he probably couldn't do it. And I was just, I was in total shock that he has dedicated so much of his life to the Japanese league. So while we're on this topic, if you could give me like a top 3 favorite guests that you've had on your podcast, who would you say are your top 3 favorite guests?
That is a tough one. I enjoy all of the guests for different reasons. As I said, I get a lot from them. I think one of the pods we had with a Jot, so a Dot left a corporate Amazon job to pursue SoRare full time, and his confidence in the platform, his confidence in cryptocurrency and Ethereum in general, this was quite some time ago, was really positive for me. I was able to then gain a lot from those conversations and follow up conversations, and do some further research, and it's financially been fantastic for me, because I gained confidence in cryptocurrency, and ETH at that time was able to buy more before it went on a pretty a pretty crazy rise.
Yeah.
So
I'll say.
there is that one. So yeah, I thought it was a great one. I think, yeah, I probably can't really. They're all amazing.
What about not favorite, but what that so and I think you said his name is Adot, right?
So it's not, no, it's AJ, right? But
AJ. Okay.
well, the joke is I've always called him a dot J Jot because this is how he pronounced it or spelt it on Twitter and on his handle, but it's A dot J dot. And the first time I never read it that way, so I was, yeah.
You call him
This
Adot.
is
I got it.
yeah. This
So
is the
Adot was one of your most memorable guests. Do you have another guest that left a impression on you, kind of like Adot did, giving you this confidence to invest in cryptocurrency and SoRare as well? Do you have any kind of guests like that?
so the Nicholas, the CEO, came on. That gave me
Whoa!
a confidence in the platform. Obviously, we've
Holy shit!
had lots of conversations with Nicholas. He's an amazing guy, and this was a great opportunity to allow the community to get some questions in. There's always quarterly Ask Me Anythings, but there was another opportunity to actually hear from him rather than it being a Discord AMA, get some more, you know, communication out there in the community, and just the insight that he was able to give in terms of how this project had started, how they had developed it, the mindset behind the team, and what they were trying to do. Yeah, that was a real confidence booster. And then on a more recent episode, we had one of the early VC backers, Christian Mealy. So he's the president of the German Startup Association, and he's also a partner in eVentures, which is the VC firm that got involved with SoRare right back in the early days. So they invested one of the initial seed rounds. I think it was at around €4 million that went in it at that time. There's been other investments, but they were one of the early backers there. So great to get him on, see his perspective of how the platform's changed since those early days when they put that money in, to understand why they put that money in, why they looked at this company, this product, and the proposition that Nicholas and the team were building as something they wanted to invest in. And yeah, so that was a real confidence booster. I think from the majority of the guests we get on, it's more about what are they doing in the game and getting people on from different perspectives, ways of playing the games, different strategies and techniques. So that's what I get more from the users. I think it's good to get to listen to all of them and get a perspective from large accounts, small accounts, people playing with this type of strategy versus another strategy. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I'm
definitely
biased, but
agree.
listen to them all.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's if you're tunnel vision and you only interview a certain type of person, you're really not going to get the full perspective of everyone that's using the website. I absolutely love hearing these guests that you are bringing on. So keep doing what you're doing. If you ever do another Nicholas Julia podcast, please make that very well known because I listened to him recently on Clubhouse and was just blown away at some of the stuff he was sharing with everybody. For those who don't know, I don't know if you said this, Hibee, but for those listening, Nicholas Julia is the CEO and one of the co-founders of this website that we are talking about right now. And to have him come on your podcast and just kind of share some insight, that is massive. That gave that just gave me some chills just listening. I happened to be able to ask a question in that recent Clubhouse discussion, and the whole time I'm waiting for them to allow me to ask a question, I'm literally shaking. I'm like, oh my God, like I just started playing and I'm about to talk to the CEO and founder of this website. I'm freaking out right now. So that's really cool, man. Glad you could share that with us.
Yeah, definitely will. We can get that in the links, can't we?
Cool. So we jumped right into your podcast, when it started, and your experience into SoRare. For those listening that don't know what SoRare is, could you kind of just give your explanation of what SoRare is?
Yeah, definitely. So I suppose at a high level, it's a blockchain-based fantasy football game where you buy, sell, trade, collect limited cards, which you can enter into fantasy football tournaments to compete for prizes each game week. So very much like a fantasy football tournament site with a collectibles element. So these cards are limited in supply, so that's where a lot of the collectibles element comes. Also, I mentioned it's a blockchain-based game, so you actually own these cards. So the players that you follow, so you've maybe been playing FIFA and buying FIFA packs and spending all this money each year. It runs out the next year when you buy the new game, and you have to do the same all over again. I can buy a card of one of my favourite players, young Jeremy Doku, for example, somebody I know from Football Manager, playing with Anderlecht for years. I was able to come onto this platform, scout this young player. He's then had a move to a League One, a French club, Rennes, and somebody who I think is going to have a massive future. So I own his card. I'm able to then follow his future, use him in fantasy football tournaments on a weekly basis when he's playing, and benefit from my scouting knowledge, benefit from my love of the game, and enjoy watching that player while they also are returning me points and competing in this fantasy football platform. So really, it's a pretty new concept, but it's built on a lot of existing solid foundations. So your digital scarcity, the popularity of fantasy football, a growing collectibles market, particularly in the online space. So we've seen the NFT hype and boom of late. And then I think the other point is it's official club licenses. So all the cards that you buy on here, they're officially licensed by the clubs themselves. It's similar to Panini or Topps. These have agreed licenses with the clubs. You're not going to get knockoffs or competitors. It's not. Yeah, I can't just go and create this myself.
Right. And one of the things that I actually specifically like about SoRare is that the licenses that the clubs give to SoRare, it's not just the first time. Okay, here's my license. Go have fun. Every purchase, and this is my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but every time a card is purchased and sold, a portion of that is given back to the clubs, I believe. Because I know in the NFT world, if a piece of artwork is sold, every sale after that, a portion of that sale is actually returned back to the original artist. And so, if I understand the NFT world correctly, every sale that is made with a player's card gets returned back to the club and back to the player. Is that the correct understanding there?
So certainly not back to the player. There are commercial contracts between SoRare and the clubs. I think
Okay.
there is an element of when cards are sold, a value is then passed back to that club, but there may also be upfront fees as well for that
Right.
initial
Right.
license. So I'm not 100% sure on the finer commercial details. I don't think the team are going to make those public knowledge.
No. Yeah.
but but I think
Definitely not.
we definitely know that clubs are benefiting from this partnership, and that's one of the key things. This is another revenue stream. So you've got huge super clubs that are playing in the Champions League. An extra couple of £100,000 is maybe not a huge deal for them, but we've got clubs all over the world in this, smaller clubs that actually this is a quite a nice new income stream coming into the business. And yeah, well, I think they're going to see more of that. You're seeing platforms like Socios as well with fan tokens. I'm sure clubs are getting a bit of that. And there's going to be more and more of this in the digital space. And it just brings fans closer to the players that they love and the clubs that they support.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, that I'm glad you said that because that brings up another point that you had said earlier, which is that you love soccer so much. This is a way for you to not only invest back into the players and clubs that you like, but to invest in the sport. And watching it almost makes your viewing experience, it kind of elevates it because now you're not just cheering for a win and a loss of the team that you like. but you're also getting benefits in return when you invest in this player and you use him in your fantasy team and participate in tournaments. If you win tournaments, you actually get cards in return, which then you can then either use on other teams and other tournaments, or you can sell them back onto the market and make a profit with. So for me, there's so many wins all around. The user who's buying the card gets a win. The player, while he may not see it right away, he is in fact helping his club generate a little bit of income. And then I'm sure the SoRare website is also collecting a little bit, uh, for each transaction. It's such an amazing platform. I am just totally entranced by this.
And I just wanted to add there something about you mentioned the player. So we've started to see players getting involved with the game. So we know Griezmann has an account and is buying players and is getting involved. We know Ryan Babel does. And obviously SoRare Japan, the user I had on the previous pod, he initiated it. He actually got on the first real footballer, Diego Nishi, from Japan. And Nishi has been given his own signature card. So any professional footballer that decides to come on the platform and actually play the game will be given their own signature card from the SoRare team. So we've got Babel, we've got some other players in the MLS who have joined recently. They've started to play. I think it was Kyle Duncan that's now on the platform. There's a few others as well, and I think that's going to be a growing thing. So can you imagine seeing Griezmann and Babel going head to head in some kind of side tournament, playing with their SoRare cards, or in the future Messi and Piqué, and yeah, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time. It feels like every day there's like something new that happens. Whether the website's upgrading or like we just saw Milan. Milan is a legendary club. They just joined. I'm fortunate that I was actually on the website when they joined because Milan is my favorite team. That is my go-to team in Europe.
Brilliant. It's always good when. So my team's not on yet, but I've had so many other guests who have had their club come on, and the excitement around your club coming onto the platform because you can actually own the players that you follow, that you really enjoy watching. I think it's completely different. So although you get this excitement about owning all these other players, the Milan guys are going to have a special place in your heart, aren't they? And if you can afford a Donnarumma, then I'd get one because he's my next target for sure.
Dude, you're spot on. He is the best goalkeeper right now in SoRare, and he'll probably be the best goalkeeper for the next at least 2 or 3 years, maybe longer than that, just because of his age. He's playing in Europe, and he's playing on a team that will potentially be in Champions League. You're hitting all these high notes for checkbox. You're checking off all these check boxes for the qualifications of your player. I am right there with you, Hibee. I am looking to get a Donnarumma card as soon as possible.
Yeah, they're not cheap though, but yeah,
no, they're not cheap.
But that's the thing that if you look at it and you look at this game as from an entertainment perspective, so you have the ability to use these cards and to win prizes, as you've talked about, and those prizes are quite tasty. The value of them is quite significant. But there's a lot of it has to come down to the enjoyment factor. So if you spend, say, £3,000 on a Donnarumma card, you're potentially going to get 15 years utility out of that card in these competitions. And obviously a lot of things change in 15 years and we can't look that far ahead. But, there is an element of, it's not £3,000 for right now. That's over the course of the career, and 1 or 2 wins pays that back quite quickly.
That's right.
It's crazy. So we've seen in recent weeks, and a manager, Seguin, we had on the pod, he won a super rare Mbappe. So I think that's about a £50,000 card.
Oh.
You've got another Tom C. He won a rare Mbappe, and there's a £15,000 card. You're talking significant amounts from teams that maybe cost a couple of £1,000s to put out. So if you can put the elite pieces together in the right way, you're not going to win every week, but you're giving yourself a good chance to do so. Now, not obviously, not everyone's going to have the money to be able to do that, and I think it's important to say that you can also play this on a budget. So the way SoRare works is there's lots of different tournaments. So there's different divisions and regional divisions. So you can play just in MLS, you can play just in the Asian divisions, you can focus on Europe, and then within that, there's different tiers. So you're not necessarily playing against all the biggest managers. You are, but it's on a level playing field. So you won't be
Right.
playing against the cards that are costing £50,000, £100,000 with your £100 cards. Do you know, it's quite there is a level playing field within each of the divisions there.
And I'm glad you brought that up because that's a point that I think is definitely not received right away when you join the website. It took me quite a while to understand that there are levels of of fantasy play where I don't need to invest $10,000 to be able to join and win something. I can go in there with maybe $500. $500 players can get me into a really decent tournament, and I can win back a card that might be worth $1,000 or $2,000, and I've almost paid for my entire squad right there with that one win. Just like you said with Donnarumma, if I pay £3,000 or dollars, all it takes is one win in an entire season, and I could potentially make that right back. I'm so glad you pointed that out. My next follow up question would be: we have the uniques, which are one of ones. We have the super rare, which are one of tens, and we've got the rares, one of 100. Do you think SoRare will be going in the direction where they have a one of 1,000 or one of 500? Do you think we'll get there?
I do think so. It seems to be what's being asked for by the community, and there seems to be almost an acceptance that this is what's coming. But I think the team are very smart. They know. So essentially what needs to happen, there needs to be a mechanism for which millions of managers can onboard into this game. And to do so, there needs to be an entry level barrier removed in terms of financial barrier. So
Right.
I think you need to be able to pick up and play this game for somewhere between $50 to $100 or whatever your regional currency is, and enjoy it and be able to play and compete at that level and be able. So in order to do so, we've already seen the price of rares, super rares, and uniques go way past that. It's
Yeah.
just not possible. So unless you have really, say, a $500 budget at the moment, it's quite hard to even put together a team that are going to allow you to compete. So there's obviously other ways to play, and you can buy players for speculation and not actually play in the fantasy side. But that's where the fun comes from. And to make this a game that's open to the masses, there needs to be a mechanism for other people to get involved. And yeah, whether that's a 1 out of 500 or a 1 out of 1,000 tier, I don't know. Are there other routes to make that possible? Maybe, but yeah, it seems the most logical to open up other tiers, and then within each of the regional divisions, rather than have division 1 to 4, you could potentially have anywhere sort of 1 to 10. There could be all sorts of different variations to allow the progression of managers right up from using. So let's call this new tier the uncommon tier. So the ability for somebody to come in and spend $10, $15, $20 and buy a couple of cards and enter in the lowest tier and build up from there, be able to win some of these cards back and then put out a team of 5 of these to enter in Division 9 or whatever that may be. So I think what I'm talking about is probably a way down the line. I think we see lots of smaller iterations to get there. It's really difficult without seeing a lot of the data that the team will be looking at the moment to really map this out and analyse what is the user demand, and if we put in a new tier system, what does the current user demand and expected future demand support? Because the team also have control of that, so they don't necessarily need to release all of the 500 of the series. So if there was an issue with demand, that can be shored up by the team reducing what is actually released in any given season. But yeah, there's lots of ifs, buts, and unknowns at the moment. I'm just confident that whatever we see will be done with the right intentions.
I agree. And yeah, just listening to Nicola Julia talk, you can tell he wants what's best for his website, and he wants what's best for the user. He knows that. I like that you can tell from him he wants a good user experience, and he's definitely
Exactly.
stressing that. And I think that's what's going to really help propel this website to really take off. If you had to guess over under 1 year, when do you think we'll see that next tier of cards? Do you think in less than a year or over a year?
Oh, less than a year, yeah.
Less than a year. Because, I mean, like you said, this is going to come down to the supply and demand. So currently, right now, I don't think there's enough demand to move to that 1 in 1,000. Once you reach that demand of enough users on the website, you're talking millions of users potentially, then you're also reaching not only a higher demand, but you're also probably reaching out to people with a lower budget. So then it's just going to be obvious to them, like, okay, let's release this. I am super excited, and I also would have said less than a year for the one of or that next tier of cards being released.
Yeah, I think something needs to happen in order to grow the game, and there's an excitement, there's a buzz, there's lots of people who are looking at this and wanting to get involved, but simply just can't afford to. Um,
Right,
and that's what it comes down to.
that's
This
true.
is people will look at this and think, I'd love to play this game, and I know people who are doing that. They want to play this game. They don't have $1,000 to put in, and for it to be the FIFA, for it to be this game that everyone is playing across the globe, everyone in the fantasy football and
Right.
collectible space, then I think you need these things. But yeah, there's a balance, and you have to. The team will work on that, and as you said, the way that they approach it will be done right. I think that comes across every time I hear Nicholas speak. It's clear they have the platform and the community at the heart of everything they do, and I think that's hugely important. Without that, there is no game, and
I agree.
it goes away. So identifying that and focusing on that is a huge strength of the company, and one of the reasons I'm so positive about it.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And I want to go back to what you said about the hurdles of for people getting into SoRare. I think it's not only the financial jump that you have to make, but I also think it's the adoption of crypto. Because for me in America, I can't connect my bank, and that might be because I'm in a state that doesn't allow this website, or maybe the U.S. has not recognized SoRare to allow banks access to this website. However, if I'm involved in crypto, I can participate in this website. But I've been in crypto since 2017. For someone who is just seeing SoRare in 2021, how easy or difficult it is to get into crypto, I think, is one of those barriers that either Nicholas is going to have to break, or maybe someone else outside of the SoRare community is going to have to. And I'm not saying this is a solution, but there is definitely a problem with um, buying Ethereum crypto and then entering that into the website. What are your thoughts on that hurdle?
Yeah, I think that's real, and I think that's part of where we are today. We're still very early in this space, and I think a lot of the future solutions aren't there yet. And I think for me, what I could see potentially happening is Surveyor taking a view of we make it more user friendly and make it more fiat accepting
Mm,
on the input side. All the benefits that you get from blockchain still exist, they're still all there. As this whole space evolves and as some of these third party providers come into the space, offer solutions that integrate with Surveyor and give that better user experience, I think people will naturally move into the crypto space easier. But they'll do it without knowing necessarily. I think mass adoption for crypto will happen in that way. There's all of the early adopters like yourself and others that are on Surveyor who, yeah, we're excited about the space, playing about
Oh
with
yeah.
it, paying really high fees for the fun of it, and buying silly things. But it's part of the fun, and there's going to be a small group of people who do that. That's not going to be how the world operates. This is too technical for granny and grandma, and
Right.
this
Yeah.
is not going to be possible. So the UX experiences that other people will build and will be what you interact with. We'll take that
Right.
all away, but all the benefits of blockchain and will sit in the background. We'll still have all that, but yeah, for
Yeah.
now,
It's
it's
definitely.
growing pains, isn't it? So
Yes, yes, and I'm fortunate that like I said, I joined into the crypto space in 2017, 2018, right before that first hype when Bitcoin got to $20,000. I had invested quite a bit of money into the crypto space and then watched it just kind of tank and was like, well, I'm not pulling out now. Might as well just wait and see what happens. And was fortunate to watch this recent boom, which I kind of credit to the NFT space blowing up. And then once this NFT space blown up, I it stumbled across SoRare. I saw fantasy soccer. And to kind of go off on a tangent, I'm actually building my own fantasy soccer website. I would love to share with you after the podcast. But anytime I see fantasy soccer, I immediately click on it because I'm doing research. I want to see what's their scoring system, how are they setting up. And as soon as I saw this platform, I immediately was like, this is the future. This is the future
yeah,
because you don't have to just play fantasy to win and make money. If you are knowledgeable enough about certain players, you can find these players, buy them when they're relatively unknown, relatively young, hold on to them, and then find that right moment to sell them. And when I first joined the website, I said, "Screw fantasy. I know enough of these young players. I'm going to go out and buy them and just hold. And I'm just going to wait for those moments to sell." And as I kind of got into the platform, I realized I was like, "Man, I am wasting money by not participating in fantasy because there's chances to win more cards, which means I can sell more players, and the snowball happens from there." Uh, would you describe yourself as more of a person that's in it for the fantasy, or are you in it for the buying young and selling with more experience and potential and hype? What do you think?
yeah, I do both, but I think
Okay.
yeah, I got on quite some time ago, so it's been easier to do so and amass a fairly large collection of younger guys that allow me to sit on them and hold them as non-utility players. But you talked about there missing out on the prizes on offer. I think that's huge. So actually having a collection that is playing, that is returning scores and allowing you to compete is quite important to be able to generate a good return here and now. There's obviously a huge opportunity cost if you just sit on younger players in the meantime. But the upside further down the line might be huge. I prefer to just do both. So I've got the enjoyment out of playing on a regular basis. I've got these youngsters that I'm waiting on. But then you've got the even better part of when some of those youngsters come on, you're able to just put them straight into a team that's ready to compete. So
Yeah.
I'm able to
Yeah.
just supplement them in. There's some 18-year-old who I backed as a 16-year-old, for example. I don't know, a Ricardo Pepe type that who goes on and does really well. You you have them. They're now available in your team, and you've got them before they're $2,000.
Right. Yes, and that's a great point. You might be taking a risk spending $500 on this young player that enough people know about to price them or bid on them to get them to $500. But it only takes a couple of games for that player's value to instantly jump up to $2,000, and you've made 4 times your money back. Not to mention, if you are using that player in the fantasy sports arena, there's a potential for you to make double because now he is winning. He's scoring points, which is helping your team compete in tournaments. You're now winning NFT cards, and his value is doubling. It's just incredible the return on investment that you can get out of a player's card. This is what's absolutely sold me on this whole website right here. It's just incredible.
Yeah, yeah. And I think obviously we are getting to certain limits in terms of what the returns can be. in pure terms of capital appreciation, but I think it's still early days in terms of a growing platform. I think it's always important to look at there is a relative scarcity of these cards, so there's only ever going to be 111 maximum of any one player any given season. So over the course of somebody's full career, so somebody who's maybe got a 20-year career, you're only going to have just over 2,000 cards ever available of this player. And we're already seeing over 10,000 managers on the platform. So for your young superstars, your Mbappes, your Haalands, these players that I'd imagine more than 20% of the platform's users would want to own. I think that's why you see such a dramatic rise in some of the prices as the user base is growing. Obviously, we talked about another scarcity. Does that sort of stop that a little bit? I don't think so. I think you're always going to have that for these three tiers. And I think it's important to have something that sits underneath that or bridges it in between that allows the mass market to get on. But there's always, I think, a great part of the concept behind this is the scarcity, is the fact that there will only be so many players, and you have to use your knowledge, you have to make a judgment at the time to buy a player, and sometimes it is fairly expensive, but it can be the right purchase. So I know recently I've spotted some gaps in my lineups. I've made some purchases, but these players have went straight into being players that I'm going to select on a regular basis. So they're enhancing my teams. They're giving me more chances of winning a card. So a couple of days ago, I won a couple of cards in the last game week. One of them's a Koulibaly. So somebody I want to own. He's not the most expensive card on the platform, but he's somebody I like. He's an actual player that I really want. And so I didn't have to pay for him. It was cards that I'd bought in the past who've got me this other NFT that I really want. So yeah, that's always nice to see.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more, man. Just getting a card like a Koulibaly, I mean, the feeling that you must have got there was, I can't wait to get my first card like that and be like, oh, I won this. This is mine. I get to keep it, sell it, play it, whatever. That's so cool. So I got a few quick rapid fire questions. When did you buy your first card? Rare, super rare, unique, whatever, and who was it?
So the first one, so this is about 10 months ago, 11 months ago, Godfred Donsa. I don't know if you know him.
I do not know him. Yeah, I'm writing his name down. I got to look him up.
No, so he was on loan at Cercle Bruges at the time, but he's a Ghana youngster. But no, okay. He's 24 nowadays, but he was on loan from Bologna. He's still a Bologna player. He's currently at Rizespor in Turkey, out on loan. But yeah, good potential. Decent young player. He cost me, let's see, how much was that? £2.87.
What?
You just can't get £2.87 players anymore.
No. Yeah, they all start around $5 right now. Your first bid is $5, which I'm always curious as to what determines that starting number. But man, $2.80 or £80, that's a steal.
So number four was Lee Kangen of Valencia, so for £15. Then we had a Nubel at £28.
Jeez.
And then we Jonathan Bamba,
wow,
Leo, £22. So these, remember at this time there wasn't that many clubs on. So Leo, Lyon, and then you had Schalke, Valencia. There wasn't that many teams available at the time.
Very cool. All right, another rapid fire question for you. When did you sell your first card, and who was that, and how much?
I have no idea. I literally have no idea the first card that I sold.
Do you remember the feeling you had when it was like, wow, somebody actually bought that?
No, I can't remember it being the first card.
Okay, all right, cool. So
there have been some. There's been some huge returns I've been able to sell on cards, but every single one I have done barring a few, I've pretty much had seller's regret on. When I sell a player,
Really?
I want to get them back. Yeah, I've done it
Oh,
not
man.
long ago with Hans Vanaken, who's a bit of a SoRare legend because he was on in the early days when it was just the Jupiler League and he was performing so well. But yeah, I sold him, I won him, I sold him, and then 2 days later, I bought him back. Not the one I sold, but another one.
Right. Wow, that's funny. All right. What about the card you most regretted selling away? Was it him, Hans Vanaken?
No, I've got a much worse one than that. Ronaldo.
A Cristiano?
So I won Ronaldo and I sold him for £750.
Holy shit! What was it? A rare? Was it a super
It
rare?
was
What
it
was
was
it?
a it was a rare, but at the
Oh
time
my!
that was a decent value for him.
Yeah,
But I think now what was the last couple they're going for several multiples off that. So,
yeah. For those listening and not familiar with the SoRare world, a Cristiano unique card, a one of one from the 2020-2021 season, has just sold for $289,000. A
yeah,
SoRare record, absolutely incredible.
it was So things have obviously escalated quite significantly. But I have used that money effectively. I've been able to get other cards in the collection. I think, it would have been nice to have a Ronaldo still, but it
I've
wasn't
got
one
to.
of the original ones either. So it wasn't one of his first seasons on the platform. It was one of the newer 2020-21 ones. So that played a part in the thinking. It's not as much of a collector's item for me. So I think all Cristiano Ronaldo cards will be collector's items in the future. But at the time, it felt like a good deal. But now, looking back now, I just wish I had them back.
And actually, this reminds me of something really cool. I got to bring up the story about how we basically met, which was I was bidding on a card. His name was Ike Ugbo, who is a 21-year-old English forward for Cercle Bruges. And as I'm bidding for this card, I see your name pop up, and you and I kind of went back and forth for quite a bit. And I really wanted this card. I wound up paying $362 for him, which, looking back, is probably a little much at the time, but I'm hoping to get some return. Immediately looking at this guy's name, Hibee's name on SoRare is Hibee SoRare Podcast. I said, I've got a podcast. I need to reach out to this guy and see if he's willing to come talk on the Footy Fetish podcast. I found him on Twitter, sent him a follow, and immediately you followed back, which I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then you reached out to me and said your name looked familiar. I think now we brought up the story about how we were just bidding on the same card, and here we are. We're on a podcast. I think that's incredible that we were able to basically connect, and now we're on a podcast over bidding on a card. That's what a story.
Yeah, all in the space of a week or so, isn't it? So, yeah, quite amazing. But that's what SoRare does. We talked
Right.
about all the different nationalities, and I'm speaking to German managers, French managers, Russian managers. People from all over the world on a regular basis, and that's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very cool.
I'm just having a look at Ugbo now. I might just go and buy him. There's a couple listed.
Man, he's a solid player. I'm really happy I got him. It was, like I said, it might have been for too much, but because his current sell value is way lower than what I bought him for. Not way lower, about $100 lower. But that brings up another point. Like you said, you're constantly communicating with managers from all over the world. Some of these managers on SoRare have really become a thorn in my side. I'm sure you've heard of Powell Trader.
Yeah.
What is his? Can you just share some of his story? Because he seems to be everywhere, and he is so annoying to bid against.
Yeah, I think you're going to get guys like that, and I think so. You've got some guys with some deep pockets on this platform. I think you've got managers like Powell and others who are quite happy to buy up full collections of other managers and then sell them back on the market. And they're also very active in the transfer market. So you're going to be bidding against people who potentially don't have a limit. There really are some of these types starting to look at this platform. So yeah, there will be times where you just have to, you see a name there and you think, I'll skip this one by. I'll wait till he gets his Ugbo or
Yeah.
whoever it is, and then I'll come back for the next one. But I think that is part and parcel of it. There are some people who have made serious gains in the crypto world.
It's funny. My friend and I have kind of given this guy a persona, just because we've been involved in so many different auctions for different players, and you go and look up a player to see if he's got any cards for sale, and sure enough, Powell Trader has got a
5 of them.
fucking God. He's like selling like a whole bunch of them and just totally ruining the market. You're like, well, this is the game we're playing now. You gotta somehow find a way to outsmart Powell Trader, because he definitely has got deep pockets, and it's definitely making it a little bit more fun. I gotta say, I am pissed off sometimes, but it's definitely making it more enjoyable to have someone that like at that such high of a level to compete against. So yeah,
I think guys like these are positive overall for the platforms. You get new users where they're coming in and they're giving them the opportunity to actually get on a lot of these cards. Whereas if they weren't in the hands of these huge accounts who have no emotional attachment to the cards, then you would see a lot of the secondary market prices just continuing to rise. Whereas you have a large trader like that who has 16 of a particular Duff player that that they've picked up, and he's able to sell them off pretty cheap. So yeah, I think that there are positives for it, but maybe not when you're going up against them.
Right. It's hard to go up against a shark, when you're just a little clownfish swimming around in this auction. But
I think that's how we all feel. There's a couple of major guys, isn't there?
Yeah. I've definitely come across a bunch of them. Another one that immediately comes to mind is Zima Blue.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've come across. I don't know if you're in contact with these guys, but man, as soon as I see some of these guys bidding in an auction, I'm like, all right, peace, I'm out of here. He recently knocked me out of a Milan bundle that was just going. Which, speaking of which, I've noticed you have been bidding on at least, I think every Milan bundle that I've looked in, you have had a bid in, and I'm like, how is he doing this? Like, what is your strategy? So now that I've got you, I'm super curious. What is your strategy with bidding on so many different cards?
Yes, not so much a strategy. Just I like to use my auction list as a way of sort of filtering the players and the auctions that I'm really interested in. So looking out 2-3 days at the auctions coming up and putting a bid on while they're at really low values, and then I can monitor them from my auction page and get involved with the ones that are maybe going under the radar a little bit. There's really not many these days, but and also just so I don't need to keep looking at the new signings and see all these players that I'm not interested in and miss the guys that I am. There's 300-400 players that I still want to add to my collection, and for sure at the moment that are on the platform, and I can't add them all at one time. It takes time. What I have learned is to be cost effective, buying over longer periods, and so even in a rising market, I think that's still a positive way to go. If I was to spend all my money on all these 400 targets today, I think there's probably periods in the future where they're out of form, something happens, that they get injured, that I would be able to pick up individual players slightly cheaper, or I also have the chance to win some of these players back. So yeah, me bidding on lots of players is really just for me to monitor it.
Interesting. And I believe we'd spoken about this strategy before. It's almost like you're bookmarking these players so that you don't have to remember all these different auctions that are going to be ending on different days. You can just go to your auction list and see all of these upcoming auctions that are going to be closing, and maybe make a decision. You know what? Let that one go. I'm going to focus on this one, and
Exactly.
very, very cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I remember we had talked about that before the podcast. So glad you could share that. Before we go, I don't want to take too much of your time. We're about an hour and 10 minutes into this one. Do you have any advice for new users on the platform?
Yeah, so a few points. first is always take your time. So you don't need to rush in. I think there's always a lot of hype around things, and you know this isn't going anywhere. So you don't need to think I'm going. If I don't get that auction, I can't enter. There's lots of auctions coming up. It's a 24-hour, 24/7 market. You'll always be able to pick up cards there. So take your time, really understand the game, reach out to other people. So whether that's on Twitter or on Discord, on WhatsApp groups, wherever your group is, reach out to other people in there and ask questions. And there's lots of great guides. So on my website, we've got new user guides from myself and other managers in the community who have put together videos and other new user material there. So look at that, ask questions, and yeah, take it slow. You don't need to rush in. And there are managers who want to jump right in, get right involved, spend an awful lot of money in, and that's fine as well. But I think it's you don't feel pressure to do so. You can learn this game at a slower pace, build up your confidence and how the pricing mechanisms work, how the scoring works in the SO5 tournaments. And yeah, I think that would be my main.
That is great advice. I'm gonna be honest. I wish I had that advice. Joining in, I went very fast, very hard, and was quickly hit with that wall. Like, oh, holy shit, I got to slow down. So that is fantastic advice. And also the reaching out. I did the same thing. It took me a little bit to realize there are people that have been in this game for a long time. There are plenty of resources. There are plenty of communities that you can go out there and talk to, engage with, and even podcasts. Such as yourself. I'm just want to give a shout out real quick for those who have made it this far in the episode. Please go give a subscribe to Hibee's podcast. That is SoRare Podcast on all platforms. Hibee, can you also drop your email?
So my Twitter is at SoRare_podcast. That's the best place to get me, or in the SoRare Discord. But yeah, I'm on Twitter most of the time.
Perfect. Okay, we will definitely be dropping that in our episode description, and we will probably be dropping this episode on Twitter as well. Hibee, before we close this episode out, we always like to ask our guests to give a shout out to someone in your life. It can be a club, it can be a family member, it can be someone you hate, it can be someone you love. We like to end the podcast off with you giving a shout out to someone.
Nice. Right. So, well, I started the pod talking about John Robertson's testimonial. So I think I'll end the pod giving a shout out to his eldest son, Mark, who just had a baby last week. So congratulations, Mark. Fantastic news. And yeah, looking forward to catching up with you very shortly and meeting her.
Awesome. I really like that podcast. I really like that shout out. Personal shout outs are always my favorite. I'm going to give a shout out to my parents who actually just had their 33rd anniversary yesterday. Definitely been some of the best mentors and leaders and friends in my life. They're responsible for a lot of the personality traits that I have, a lot of the decisions I've made, and have been a very big part in the man I am today. So shout out to you, Mom and Dad, Bob and Carrie. Love y'all.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah. Hibee, this has been fantastic. I am going to be reaching out to you much more. This has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining the Footy Fetish Show.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
All right.
We'll speak more, I'm sure.
Fantastic. This has been the Footy Fetish Show, where the fetish is real and the footy is soccer. Peace out, Boy Scouts. Hootie, I love you.
Love you too.